Raise the Titanic from 1980. Does this movie rise to the top or sink to the bottom? Theme song.
Colin's Reviews! Colin's Reviews!
If you want to watch Raise the Titanic, check the link in the description. So, this is based off a 1976 book by Clive Cussler, and Wikipedia says he hated it so much he refused to license his book for movies for years to come. And I can only imagine that the book came out because he thought of the title first, Raise the Titanic, and then he kind of worked backwards to try and figure out, okay, why are they going to raise it? So the reason he came up with is kind of fun. I was kind of enjoying it after a slow start. Turns out there's this rare radioactive element, and it was being transported to the US aboard the Titanic when it sank. And now they have plans for this missile defense system, and it would only be powered by this rare element. So they got to get it back. So the film has, there's competition between the USA and the Soviet Union. It turns out that the island where it was mined was originally the Soviet Union's. They claim it. And also because it's about defense and things like that, they don't want the Americans to get ahead of them. So there are some spies on the team. And the problem is, despite this competition, there's not really a lot of drama. We don't really get much face-to-face between the Americans and the Russians. And it's also pretty slow. For example, the movie starts off with all these pictures of black and white and sepia tone pictures of giant ships. And presumably they're the Titanic, but who knows? They could just be random giant ships, and there's some background music playing. Then we get some footage of a guy in the snowy ground. Again, no dialogue still. And he's digging, and we see him find a mine shaft. And we find out that he was looking for the rare radioactive element, but it had been mined before. He finds evidence. He finds a frozen skeleton, and he finds evidence that it was mined by Americans in the 1910s. So he is trying to get out of there because the Soviets control it, and a Soviet soldier shoots him. But then our hero shows up, and he's sort of imagine a mix between Snake Plissken and Indiana Jones, but without any real roguishness, because we're told he's a badass, and when you got a job that's impossible, those are the only kinds he takes. But he's not really very roguish, I guess. I don't know. And this could also lead to some more drama, because it turns out back in the States, there's a scientist who has created the plans for the missile defense system. And his girlfriend used to date our drugstore Dollar General store brand Snake Plissken. And at first they don't get along, but even though it doesn't turn out to be much more than, oh, college boy, and he's a little jealous, and his girlfriend, breaking up with him was the worst mistake of my life.
Let's just get it straight once and for all. I lived with him for 2 years, and I was crazy about him.
That's terrific. That's just terrific. If you were so damn crazy about him, why didn't you stay with him?
Because I was stupid.
And that's it. End of subplot. So once they figure out that the radioactive material was mined, it was shipped to the United Kingdom, and apparently the Russians were on their tail the whole time, even though it was in 1912, so I'm not sure if it was the Russians or maybe it was Russia. I can't remember. It doesn't matter. And so they get it on board the Titanic. And of course, the Titanic sank. So from here on, it's kind of a disaster movie type thing about finding the Titanic. And there is, a couple deaths. There are some fake outs like, oh, it's over here. Don't know, it's totally over here. But the film could have been a lot more fun, but they just refused to raise the stakes. Even the two guys that were both interested in the same woman, there could have been some more fights there, but no. There could have been more Even the espionage by the Soviets isn't really that big of a deal. And like the one scene where the Soviets are really challenging the Americans, they just kind of resolve it with the equivalent of, oh, you got a knife? Well, I got a gun. And then the Soviets are like, oh, yep, you do. I'm out. So it's like, come on. There's also, they really missed a chance. And maybe this is where they were trying to be like the book, but there's a last minute switcheroo. And they really could have played that up by having the Russians fall for it. But no, the Russians are out of the picture by then. So, yeah, they may have raised the Titanic, but they didn't raise my interest. So I say give it a pass. I'm giving Raise the Titanic 2 thumbs down. Let the sunken ships lie. It's dull and pretty lifeless. At least have some fights.